This is Grunewald S-Bahn station in the western part of Berlin. Fantastic old structure, 19th century, still in use, and it sort of brings back the look of a former age. What I'm now going to do is to show you the place where people were deported from. Jewish people were deported from Berlin, from this location as one of three potential locations. In fact, there's a location to the north or north centre part of Berlin, a goods terminal, and there's the Anhalter Bahnhof, where small amounts of people. This was the largest deportation point. Utterly clear what it is. You want to get on a train coming through there, you've got to go past this potentially every time you go to work and every time you come back. Gleis 17, platform 17. In 1933, I would say something like 1/8 of all the Jews in Germany lived in Berlin, approximately. So it's an extremely vibrant Jewish community. A Jewish community which, on the whole, was highly integrated with the rest of the community. So much so that I don't think in many cases people could say who was Jewish and who wasn't. So it was a religion, but people very, very German. In the First World War, approximately 100,000 Jews, so that's to say roughly half the male population, was in the military. That's far more than the average for non-Jews. Of those, 12,000 were killed. 12%, again, it's much higher than the average for other people. In the immediate post-war period, there was a wave of emigration, or immigration I should say, from the parts of Poland which became independent, or parts of Russia, former Russia, which became independent. So there were two lots of people in this wave of immigration. They were firstly Jews who had lived in Poland, who lived in Germany prior to World War I, but found themselves in territories which were now taken by Poland, such as people, for example, from Bydgoszcz, lesser extent people in Gdansk and other places. And the second lot were Orthodox people who came from Russia, or former Russia, and they came here fearing pogroms and the like. And there's probably around 200,000, maybe some around those areas. That would give a population in Germany of around 600,000, something along those lines. And now the people from the east, the Ostjuden, they were clearly identifiable by their dress, the way they spoke, the way they looked. So they clearly could be seen as new immigrants. When Hitler came to power, and there was a wave of anti-Semitism, starting off with the Jewish boycott on the 1st of April 1933, to eventually, effectively, what happened here. This, from here, it is believed that up to about 50,000 people were deported from this station. They were brought here, they were collected in various places, but mainly there was a synagogue which is roughly 8 kilometers from here, Levetzowstrasse. I'll do another video on this where I can actually check my facts. I've forgotten the name of it now, but something like that. And some of the people who were unable to do the 8 kilometers, they were loaded up onto lorries, but the rest of them had to walk, and they had to walk through the streets of Berlin, including part of Kurfürstendamm. And recently there have been requests, if anybody can look at old photographs, can they find evidence of people, photographs, maybe the deportations where somebody has some photographs of them. But this must have been pretty obvious, seeing groups of people being marched through the centre and under guard. You can have a look on the map, and that will demonstrate. In fact, when I do the longer video on this subject, that will demonstrate it more for you. The thing being, them being Germans, what they did was they were more likely to just obey the instructions. They accepted it. This is the law, they've got to do this. The amount of resistance was not that great. So deportation orders turn up. After a while it came that people did start not turning up for deportation. Lots of suicides. When that compares to, for example, in Poland, for example, suicide was comparatively rare. I was talking to a friend of mine not so long ago, and he told me how his grandmother committed suicide on receiving her deportation order from Cologne. More people went underground in Berlin than anywhere else. There were something like 6,000 to 7,000 people underground. Not all of them survived, of course. Some of them were caught and captured, and if a person was underground, required help from people who were were not Jewish. So must be at least 4, but probably closer to 10 helpers. And today I was listening to the account of somebody who said there was 87 people who helped him to stay underground. The word used for the people underground, U-boat, so they're under the water. And now the location itself was chosen, as most deportation places were chosen, because there were goods terminals. That's almost the case everywhere. If you take, for example, the Warsaw ghetto, it was a former branch line of a factory. So goods terminals. There are cases where railway stations were used as well, passenger stations, but they're comparatively rare. I understand that the passenger side here was not. This was used as goods in the 1940s. That is my understanding. I could be wrong. I shall take you round once more. Now, this monument is comparatively recent. This station found itself with a lot of trouble after the war because of the damage that was done. This is part of West Berlin, so it was handed over to the Western Allies in July 1945. And as the first sign went up here, I think it was 1956, but it was taken down again, and it wasn't until one went up, I think, in the 70s. But this, as it is, I mean, it's very well advertised, as you can see there. Everybody walks past can see it, but this is part of the new Germany since unification, and which has led to this being done. Now, another thing I'd like to state is that how when people were sent out, they were initially sent not to death camps but to ghettos, which was and when people were sent to the ghettos, then they had it was very difficult for them to fit in. First of all, they didn't speak the language, which is Yiddish as a general rule. The people that they found themselves amongst, first of all, they've got all the best places. The people these people from Germany, they got what was left over, so to speak, and there was a lot of tension. Now, Teuverblatt, he escaped from Sobibor in 1943. I lived with him. We spent lots of time talking about these things. He talked about how the German Jews were not trusted at all, and there was a great deal of tension between the two groups. So they didn't see them as other Jews, they saw them as Germans. And indeed, many of the Jews saw themselves not as Jews, but as Germans of Jewish origin. What I'm going to do here, you can see the places people were sent to. So the very first deportation from here was on the 18th of October 1941. 1,251 people were sent to Łódź. So 1 week later, 24th, 6 days later, 896 people again to Łódź. 3 days later, sent to Łódź. Goebbels wanted to get rid of the Jews living in Berlin. So that's why he wanted the first places to become without any Jews in to be Berlin, Prague and Vienna. There you go. Goebbels was, of course, the Gauleiter. Łódź, sent to Minsk. When those that were sent to Minsk, to make way for them, the people who had been in the ghetto were killed. I have a very long interview with a Sobibor escapee who was also in Minsk, and that might be of interest. I'll leave a link to it below if I remember rightly. Now, when people were sent to Kovno, 17th of November 1941, I'll have to talk about these Kovno and Riga in a separate video, because these people were murdered on arrival. And with one of these groups, there is this argument. Arguments being put forward. There was instructions not to kill them, and this has been used by Holocaust denialists as a pretext that this shows that the objective of deportation wasn't to kill, taking things completely out of context. So here, District Lublin, we don't know where they went to. They could have gone to Lublin ghetto. They could have gone to one of the smaller ghettos. That we don't know. I don't think they went to Izbica, which is the one I know best. Warsaw. Now we have in Ringelblum's archive, we find his notes. Emanuel Ringelblum, the chronicler of the Warsaw ghetto, and he writes that of Jews that turned up from still wearing their iron crosses, and we see that also as photographs from the Łódź ghetto, from Jews wearing the iron crosses from the First World War. Only 67 people to Warsaw. And from here we see people were sent to Theresienstadt. Theresienstadt was meant to be a sort of paradise ghetto, a retirement ghetto. And if people were known or famous, or they had lots of non-Jewish acquaintances, they ended up in Theresienstadt. And the point of that was they were Nazis trying to demonstrate that Theresienstadt was this sort of retirement home for Jewish people, and it was also designed to give the idea that there was nothing to worry about, and to encourage people to actually report for deportation. The unknown, 13th of June 1942, 746 people just disappeared. It could be that, they could be in Theresienstadt. Now, Theresienstadt would be the logical destination. Could be that the paperwork has gone missing, something like that. They have another 202 people, 26th of June 1942, unknown. Now, this period now is coming into the height of the Holocaust. Sobibor and Belzec were operating from the early spring of 1942. In July of 1942, Treblinka started to operate as well. But as you can see, people were not sent from here directly to those death camps, or at least not yet. Another 210 unknown. The Theresienstadt ghetto is very curious to actually visit. I've been there a couple of times. I don't have any video of it because it was before I started videoing things, and unfortunately my photographs have gone. But it's definitely worth a visit just to see it. It's almost intact. The walls. It's a fortress, Theresienstadt. So it was named after the. I think she was the wife of the emperor. Theresienstadt, Riga, 15th of August 1942. Now, one of the things with what the Nazis did was they sort of did things gradually. So the 1st of April 1933, there was a boycott. The boycott was a bit failed, so they pulled back a bit on the anti-Jewish legislation, and then there was a bit of a lull, and then they started again with saying that Jews were excluded from being citizenship, Nuremberg laws, and until we got to the pogrom of the Kristallnacht, 9th of November 1938. Rasiko Jagla, sorry, I can't pronunciation, is probably out as far as Estonians concerned. I think this is a very nice monument. I think it's very clear that it's here, and as you can see, all of these are Theresienstadt. Now they're sending people directly from here to Auschwitz. So 29th November 1942, that's sent directly to Auschwitz. Why? They clearly think that there's no longer any point. They've got enough people in Theresienstadt, so let's now start sending people to Auschwitz. Of course, people were sent from Theresienstadt to Auschwitz. People could only be in Theresienstadt for a matter of, in some cases, even a few days. Now, by January 1943, there are a number of people who are mixed race now, who were arrested in what was called the factory action, and this led to a protest by their wives or partners, or even in some cases their children, for their release. And this happened in Rosenstrasse, which is in the center of Berlin, or then the center of Berlin, then afterwards East Berlin. And this led, in fact, for many of these people being released. Some apparently were sent to Auschwitz and were brought back. Apparently, although I find this, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I find it hard to believe. Theresienstadt. Hope this is coming out okay, because it's the sun is rather bright. It's the end of June. It's going to be 30 degrees today. And on that subject, you can imagine what it was like in these trains. Although most of the time here, the trains used were passenger trains. They were passenger trains from like 50 years old, from the 19th century, with wooden seats. But that's what usually was used. There are cases where cattle trains, or goods trains I should say really, were also used. So here, 1944, by this time, anybody who was underground, it was possibly slightly easier to get dodgy documents, because if they could say that they were bombed out of somewhere, particularly if a place where the administration, not only the town hall but maybe the rations office as well, was bombed out, then they could say, well, they haven't got any documents, they haven't got anything. And then there are cases where people actually managed to get false documentation. Right, this is the first one, 24th November 1944, 28 people were sent to Ravensbrück and Sachsenhausen, and I think they were specialist workers in some area. Bergen-Belsen and Sachsenhausen were only 20 people. Ravensbrück, Sachsenhausen. So the last deportation on here, 27th of March 1945, 18 people were sent to Theresienstadt. Imagine that, 27th of March. So we've now got a situation, the Soviet army is only what, 70-80 kilometers from here, and they're still deporting people. They still have the technical infrastructure to deport people from this area. So this is in the west of Berlin. All the destinations were to the east, except Theresienstadt, I suppose that's to the south. And well, half the trains went to Theresienstadt. Okay, so so the ones that go to Theresienstadt, that would have been a bit easier, but the other ones would have had to go through Berlin, and some people could have looked out the window and seen what was happening. Judging by their condition, these are not the original tracks. So, I hope you found that interesting. I upload every Friday at 2000 hours. My specialist area is the Holocaust and in history, and also be a more detailed video on the deportation of people from Berlin. And once that's done, there will be a link below. But for the moment, thanks so much for watching, and all the best from me in Germany.